So in this lecture, we're going to look at organic foods and what does it mean for a food to be organic. We certainly hear a lot about organic foods, but how much interest is there in how big of an industry is this really? Despite the fact that you think, gosh, everyone's talking about organic foods, it actually only represents about 4% of total U.S. food sales. Now, total U.S. food sales is a really, really massive market, so 4% of that is very impressive. But what's interesting is that the growth of the industry is year after year pretty impressive. Okay, there's no slowing down of the interest in and purchasing of organic foods. In 1997, the organic foods market was about a $4 billion market. By 2012, $28 billion. By the end of 2014, estimations are it's a $35 billion market. Which foods are people most interested in buying organic? Okay, you can see from the chart here, it's fruits and vegetables. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are concerned about pesticide residue. Sure, the government tells you low levels of pesticides are safe, but many people, in particular parents, are interested in reducing pesticide intake, and so buying organic fruits and vegetables, there's that benefit there. Okay, there's also, in many cases, people would argue that organic foods taste better, especially with certain products. I'm thinking California. The tomatoes here are disgusting. They don't even taste like tomatoes. You buy an organic tomato, it tastes like a real tomato. Same thing with apples. Okay, organic apples just taste significantly better. They cost more, and we'll talk in a moment about why organic produce does cost more. One of the areas where there's really big growth, though, is with the packaged and prepared food categories, as well as snack foods. But please keep in mind that organic junk food is still junk food. Okay, a couple years ago, you had the Safeway and Kroger families releasing a huge line called O Organics. Okay, and there's all of this media surrounding it, and dietitians kind of laughed at it because most of the products that they were releasing were things like organic tortilla chips and organic ice cream sandwiches and organic sandwich cookies. Organic junk food is still junk food. And if you compare the nutrient content of organic versus conventionally produced foods, fresh fruits and vegetables or packaged foods, organic foods are not more nutritious. Okay? But your typical American, when surveyed, doesn't know that. They think if something's organic, there must be more nutrition in it. If you take organic versus conventionally grown strawberries, there's the same amount of vitamin C, the same amount of calories, the same amount of fiber. You can argue that the organics are healthier for you because they don't contain any of these things like hormones or pesticides or antibiotics or GM ingredients. They haven't been irradiated. But if you really want to boil it down to nutrient content, an organic strawberry is the same as a conventional strawberry. Question?
You know, like if you buy like the farmers markets into the local, do they still practice like conventional or depends?
The question is, if you're buying stuff at a farmer's market, is it organic or is it conventional? It depends what kind of farming operation is. If they're organic, they'll usually tell you that. The price point will tell you that. It's more expensive to operate an organic farming operation. There's also many people who argue that buying organic foods that came from very far away is less sustainable than buying conventionally grown foods that were grown close to you. In the U.S., we'll learn momentarily that we don't have country of origin labeling laws. So if you walk into, let's say, a Whole Foods market and you pick up a mango that came from maybe Peru, it might be an organic mango. First of all, you know nothing about Peruvian organic standards, and they're probably not as stringent as the U.S. But secondly, how many non-renewable resources were involved in getting that Peruvian mango, even though it's organic, to you at Whole Foods in Southern California? Whereas maybe they're using a little bit of pesticides at a local operation, but it only had to travel 20 miles. But a lot of times what you see at the farmer's market, too, you have the option of buying local and organic, which if you can get it and afford it, is a great option. But that's not a reality for people all around the country. So what does organic mean? Okay. Organic refers to as a labeling term that indicates that a food or a product has been produced through what are called approved methods. And those methods are very different from conventional farming in the sense that they espouse concepts like cultural and biological and ecological diversity. They're interested in fostering and cycling ingredients, practicing ecological balance, and conserving biodiversity. Conventional, at the end of the day, it's a business if you're a conventional farmer. You want to grow a lot of stuff, you want to charge as much as you can for it, but you're operating in a market where Americans don't want to pay very much for it. Okay. In the organic arena, most people who are proponents of organic foods understand that they're better for the environment in the sense that they don't contain pesticides and hormones and antibiotics. They're healthier for you as a person because you're keeping those things out of your system. but they're also willing to acknowledge that it costs more to run an organic operation. Okay, you can't use things like synthetic fertilizers in organic operations, sewage sludge. You can't use irradiation, which is interesting because irradiation, I mentioned previously, is a very, very safe method of preserving foods, but it's still unnatural. So in that regard, irradiation and organic are not compatible. In the United States, there's many, many different organic certifying operations out there. The most largely recognizable one is the USDA organic seal, which you see here. If you think a couple of decades back, there's starting to be a growing interest in this thing called organic food production. Okay? And so as the government is usually want to do, they wanted to get involved. They wanted to regulate it to make sure that they were controlling what people said was organic, but also they're making some serious money off of organic farming because it costs a lot of money to get the USDA organic seal. Okay, so there's certain very small mom and pop operations who say, I can't afford to have the USDA come in and jump through all their hoops and pay them basically to jump through their hoops to get USDA certified. So it is very likely that you would see a local small organic farm that doesn't have a USDA certification symbol, and that's fine. They've just chosen not to participate in that program. It's the largest and most recognizable program in the U.S., but there's many, many other legitimate and very reputable and sometimes even more stringent organic certifying operations out there. You look at some organic foods and you see like 10 different certification symbols. Okay, they're just trying to prove to you they've jumped through all these different hoops to make sure that they're maintaining the integrity of what organic means at its core. To be certified USDA organic, though, means that you have gone through approval processes and certification processes to ensure that the foods that you're producing are 95% free from the things you see in this list: pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, drugs, genetic engineering, and irradiation. So that USDA organic seal, 95% free from what you see there. Occasionally you'll see a product that says it's 100% organic. Well, what does that mean? It's usually found in things where there's really simple ingredient lists. So you might see something that says 100% organic oatmeal. If you're buying oatmeal, the only ingredient in there should be oats. Okay, so if you're using 100% organic oats, then you can call your product 100% organic oatmeal. If something just says organic, this is on the front of the package, that means it's made with at least 95% organic ingredients. Because they're basically acknowledging the fact that there's going to be maybe a little bit of pesticide residue or some of this other non-desirable stuff gets into our food supply. So organic means 95% free from all the stuff that's not compatible with organic production. There's another label that you sometimes see on the front of packages that says made with organic ingredients. That means that a minimum of 70% of the ingredients in that package have to be organic. And that last 30% that's not organic, they maybe can have pesticides, hormones, whatever, but they certainly cannot be genetically modified. So let's use the example of you go to the store and you see a blueberry muffin mix, and the front of it says made with organic ingredients. What that might mean is 70% of the ingredients in that mix are organic whole wheat flour, organic sugar, organic butter, but maybe 30% or less are not. For example, the blueberries. Okay? If you flip that, okay, the last label, products with less than 70% organic ingredients, let's say 70% of the stuff in the mix was not organic, but the blueberries were. If it's less than 30% that's organic or only 30% is organic, you can list on the side panel which ingredients are organic. So it might just say flour, sugar, water, which is non-organic, 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 and then organic blueberries. But you can't go making claims about that little percentage of organic blueberries all over the front of your package if it's less than 70%. So basically, if anything says organic on the front of a package, you can be assured that there's at least 70% of the ingredients are in there that are organic. Organic foods do cost more. Okay, there's no doubt, because production costs more. In order to become a certified organic operation, if you're going to switch from conventional, there's all sorts of rules about how long you have to allow your land to lay fallow, which is meaning not making any money, okay? And then all the different certification you have to go through. It's actually a very, very expensive process. But for some farmers, the trade-off is, well, I can sell my products at a higher point. People are willing to pay more for the fact that it's more expensive to run these operations. So some farmers do it from an economical standpoint, but most people who get into organic farming are doing it from the ideological standpoint, which this is a better way to be producing food. Keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, that the U.S. does not have current well-established country of origin labeling laws. If you walk into a market and there's an organic food from some other country, the market sometimes, or the food company might tell you where it's from. This avocado is from Mexico, but more often than not, it's not going to say where it's from. And it's kind of up to you to guess or really have a good relationship with your produce manager to know where the stuff is coming from. Organic foods are not more nutritious than our conventional ones. Okay? They do not have greater nutrient contents, but again, survey after survey shows that the typical American doesn't know that. They think if something is organic, it's more nutritious. So which foods should we buy organic? Because it's not appropriate to walk into especially lower socioeconomic status groups, people with lower income, and say everyone should be eating organic fruits and vegetables. Because in many cases, that's going to be cost prohibitive. And we don't want to discourage people from eating fruits and vegetables just because they can't afford organic. So at the end of the day, eating conventional fruits and vegetables is probably better than them eating a whole bunch of packaged and processed foods. Every year, the Environmental Working Group, EWG, puts out a list called the Dirty Dozen. And the data that you see here and in the next slide is from the 2014 Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list. What they do is they take a sampling of conventionally grown produce from all over the country, and they run pesticide tests. And they basically rank what are the 12 dirtiest fruits and vegetables. So those would be the ones that have the highest pesticide residue. Because you don't just pick up an apple and say, oh, this one has 10% pesticide. It's not on your food. So we're reliant a lot of times on, this is a very pro-organic group, but still, and the USDA hates when this comes out, because they want you to think, well, pesticides are fine. Who cares if there's pesticides in your apples? What Environmental Working Group is saying, listen, it's not realistic for everyone to buy all organic all the time, but if you have a little bit of disposable income to buy organic, these are the 12 fruits and vegetables that if you can, you should buy organic. So you can actually download the Dirty Dozen list on your phone because it's hard to remember these. Okay, they also have pocket guides if you go to their website. You usually just search EWG Dirty Dozen or 2014 Shopper's Guide, and it will tell you whatever this year, the current year, the most current data. They also publish what's called the Clean 15. This is the opposite. Don't bother buying these guys organic because the conventionally produced ones have really, really low pesticide residues. So when you go into the store and you got X amount of dollars and you're only going to buy either organic apples or organic avocados, this list kind of helps you with, well, the avocados are pretty clean and the apples are pretty dirty, so I'm going to spend my little bit of organic budget on buying organic apples.